Welcome back to Legends from the Holler. Pull up a chair, light a lantern, and be careful where you step. When the night settles into these mountains, the shadows start to whisper. You are back among friends here, listening to the old stories that keep these ridges alive and remind us why every porch light stays on until dawn. Tonight's tales are about the things that still walk these hills after dark. 4 creatures born from fear, old curses, and the silence between the trees that prove one thing beyond all doubt. The Holler never sleeps, it only watches. Have you ever been deep in the woods at night and felt like you weren't alone? Felt a chill crawl up your spine that had nothing to do with the cold? In the ancient mountains stretching from Tennessee down to North Carolina, there's a story whispered around campfires. A story of a shadow with glowing eyes and a scream that can freeze the blood in your veins. They call it the Wampus Cat, and this is no ordinary legend. The story begins long, long ago, back when the Cherokee people were the sole guardians of these mountains. The men of the tribe held secret sacred ceremonies deep within the forest, rituals so powerful that women were forbidden to witness them. But there was one woman whose curiosity was stronger than her fear. She was clever and brave, and she yearned to understand the mysteries the men kept hidden. So one moonless night she devised a plan. She draped herself in the hide of a mountain cat, its spirit still clinging to the fur, and crept silently into the woods, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. She moved like a shadow through the trees. Drawn by the low hum of chanting and the flickering firelight of the ceremony, she watched, hidden as the medicine men communed with the spirits of the forest. But you can't deceive the spirits. They saw her. They saw through her disguise of fur and bone, and their anger was swift and terrible. For breaking the sacred law, they laid a curse upon her. She was transformed, merged with the very beast whose skin she wore. No longer fully woman, not quite a cat. She was something else entirely, a creature doomed to wander the mountains for all eternity. Her human heart was trapped inside a monstrous form, and her voice became a scream that echoed the agony of her lost soul. Ever since that fateful night, the Wampus Cat has haunted the Appalachian ridges. Locals say you can still hear her cry, a sound that's part woman's shriek, part panther's roar. It's a sound that makes the owls go silent and the crickets stop their chirping. Seasoned hunters tell tales of their bravest dogs whining and refusing to track their hair standing on end. Whenever that chilling scream cuts through the night air, they know it's her. They know she's close. But what happens if you actually see her? The legend warns that to meet the gaze of the Wampus Cat is to lose your mind. They say she has not 2, but 6 glowing eyes that can pierce the darkest night, and locking eyes with her invites a madness from which there is no return. People who claim to have survived an encounter are never quite the same. There's a story about a logger working near Gatlinburg. One evening, as dusk settled over the mountains, he was walking the long path back to his cabin. He suddenly felt that primal feeling of being hunted. He swore he could feel hot breath on the back of his neck, and the air filled with the thick, coppery smell of wet fur and fresh blood. He spun around, his axe raised, but there was nothing, just the whispering trees and the deepening twilight. He quickened his pace, his heart hammering against his ribs, the feeling of being followed growing stronger with every step. He didn't dare look back again. When he finally burst through his cabin door, safe and trembling, he looked down at his heavy leather boots. They were torn to ribbons, shredded as if by impossibly sharp claws that had been running right beside him the entire time, just out of sight. He never saw the creature, but he knew. He knew he had walked with the Wampus Cat. That's the most terrifying part of her legend. She's a phantom, a whisper in the dark. You don't see her coming. You don't hear her footsteps. You only know she's there when it's already too late, when you feel her presence like a ghost at your shoulder. The Wampus Cat is a timeless reminder that some ancient rules should never be broken, and that in the deep, dark woods you are never ever truly alone. If you thought the Wampus Cat was frightening, this next one is worse because it feeds on the dying. In the ancient lore of the Cherokee, there exists a creature of shadow and dread, a spirit they call the Raven Mocker. Imagine this: when a life force begins to fade, when death draws near, this entity takes to the night sky. It doesn't fly with the grace of a bird, but on ragged, tattered wings. Drawn by the scent of a soul on the verge of passing from this world, its cry is something that will curdle your blood. It's not the caw of a raven or the hoot of an owl. No, it's a sound far more chilling, like the final ragged breath of a dying man forced through a throat filled with shattered glass. The elders, the ones who remember the old ways, they'll tell you that when you hear that terrible rasping call in the darkness, it's a death knell. Someone close by will not live to see the dawn. But the Raven Mocker is more than just a harbinger of death. It's a thief. It doesn't just witness the end, it participates. It steals the remaining years from the dying, siphoning their last moments, their very breath, their precious time. This is how it sustains itself, how it endures through the ages. It is a creature as ancient as the very first grave, and as utterly relentless and cruel as death itself. It feeds on the life it ushers out. There are stories, of course, whispers from those who have felt its presence. A nurse who worked near Bryson City, in the heart of the mountains, shared a tale that still haunts the locals. She started to notice a pattern, a chilling ritual that accompanied every death on her watch. Just as a patient was about to pass, she'd hear it. A faint scratching sound at the window pane, like a branch in the wind, but more deliberate, more hungry. And every morning after a soul had departed, she would find dark, black feathers tangled in the window screen, a grim calling card left behind. One night, the scratching was louder, more insistent. Her curiosity, or perhaps a sense of dread she couldn't ignore, compelled her to look. She pulled back the curtain and peered into the darkness. There, perched on the roof of the opposite wing, was a shadow. It was immense, with wings spread wide against the moonlight, and 2 points of light glowed with a malevolent red intensity. It was staring right at her. She blinked, a single reflexive action, and in that instant it was gone, vanished into the night as if it were never there. That was her last night working in hospice care. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had looked into the eyes of death itself. So, what can be done against such a creature? The old tales offer little comfort. They say there is no charm, no prayer, no ritual potent enough to ward off the Raven Mocker. It isn't a demon you can exorcise or a ghost you can appease. It is a fundamental force, an extension of the end that awaits every living thing. It comes for all of us, eventually. The only question that remains, the one that should keep you awake at night when the wind howls and the branches scrape against your window, is whether you'll hear it coming for you with its terrible glass-filled cry echoing in the distance, or if you'll simply turn and feel its cold, silent presence standing right at your shoulder. Thank you for journeying into the shadows with me. If you are enjoying these tales, be sure to like this video and subscribe. This next legend is different, because it does not begin with curses or ghosts. It begins with history. Have you ever walked through the ancient forests of North Carolina and felt a chill that has nothing to do with the temperature? Have you seen stone walls winding through the trees, so old and perfectly made they seem otherworldly? If you have, you might have stumbled upon the legacy of a people who were here long before anyone else. A people known as the Moon-Eyed People. Before the Cherokee, before any settlers laid claim to these mountains, legend says a mysterious race inhabited this land. They were described as small and pale, with eyes so sensitive they couldn't bear the light of day. They were creatures of the night, emerging from their underground homes only when the moon was high and full, its silver light guiding their way. They lived in the deep valleys and hidden caves of the Appalachian Mountains, their existence shrouded in shadow and whispers. They were master builders. The stone walls they left behind still stand today, cold and flawlessly constructed without any mortar. It's as if they were built by hands that knew nothing of fatigue, hands that worked tirelessly in the quiet dark. Who were they? Some stories paint them as a peaceful, shy people who simply wanted to be left alone. They lived in harmony with the night, their pale forms moving silently through the moon-drenched forests. But other tales carry a more ominous tone, hinting at a people who were not so welcoming. A people who guarded their subterranean world with a quiet fierceness. The Cherokee people have their own stories. They say that when they arrived in these mountains, they found the Moon-Eyed people already here. A great conflict ensued, and the Cherokee, being stronger and more suited to the daylight world, drove them away. They chased them deep into the heart of the mountains, sealing the entrances to their underground tunnels with massive rocks and sacred prayers, intending to entomb them forever. But here's where the story takes a modern, unsettling turn. Around places like Murphy, North Carolina, strange reports still surface. Campers, huddled around their fires, have reported seeing things at the edge of the woods. Small, pale figures hunched over, their large eyes glowing in the firelight like a cat's. They are seen for just a moment, a fleeting glimpse of something that shouldn't be there, before they vanish back into the impenetrable darkness. And when these figures appear, technology seems to fail. Campers say their cameras won't work. Their phones freeze up, the screens going black. Fresh batteries suddenly die, leaving them in complete darkness. All that remains is a lingering, unnerving sensation. They describe the distinct smell of damp, cold stone, like the air at the mouth of a cave, and a chilling breath that can be felt even on a warm summer night. It's the feeling of a deep, ancient cold seeping out from the earth itself. The Cherokee believed they had sealed the Moon-Eyed people away for good. But mountains are not static. Time and weather change the landscape. Storms wash away soil, earthquakes shift the ground, and massive rock slides can move boulders that have been in place for centuries. Tunnels that were once sealed can be opened. So, the next time you find yourself deep in the Appalachian wilderness, especially after a storm, pay attention. Look closely at the ancient stone walls that seem to have no purpose. Listen to the silence between the chirps of the crickets, and if you feel a sudden, inexplicable chill or catch a glimpse of something pale moving in the shadows, remember the legend. Remember that some things once buried don't always stay that way. Sometimes they come back out. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey into one of Appalachia's most enduring mysteries. If you enjoyed this story, this last one is an old Appalachian horror story, passed down for generations. It is called the Talipo, and it is not for the faint of heart. Have you ever heard a strange noise in the dead of night? A sound you just can't explain? Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story that might make you think twice before you open your door in the dark. It's an old tale from the Appalachian Mountains, one that's been whispered around campfires for generations. It's the story of the Talipo, deep in the woods where the trees stand so thick they blot out the sun. An old hermit lived all alone in a rickety one-room cabin. Winter was closing in fast. The wind was starting to bite and his food stores were empty. He was hungry and growing more desperate with each passing day. He'd hunted for weeks, but the forest seemed empty. His 3 hunting dogs were getting as thin as he was. One night, as a storm howled outside, something scratched at his door. Not a loud, demanding knock, but a faint, persistent scratching. The hermit, startled, grabbed his old rifle. He slowly cracked open the door and peered into the darkness. There, huddled on his doorstep, was a small, strange creature. It was black as a lump of coal, with 2 glowing red eyes that seemed to burn in the night. He'd never seen anything like it. But his hunger was a roaring fire inside him, and it clouded his judgment. Without a second thought, he raised his rifle, took aim, and fired. He brought the creature inside, cooked it over his meager fire, and ate every last scrap. It wasn't much, but it was enough to silence the gnawing in his stomach. All that remained was its long, black, furry tail. Not wanting to waste anything, he thought about what to do with it. But in the end, he just tossed it into a corner of the cabin. Finally, full for the first time in weeks, he banked the fire, called his dogs inside, and lay down on his straw mattress, ready for a peaceful night's sleep. But sleep wouldn't come easy. As the fire burned down to glowing embers, a faint sound drifted in from the darkness outside. It was a soft, raspy whisper carried on the wind. It sounded like it was coming from deep within the woods. "Talipo, Talipo, who's got my Talipo?" The hermit's eyes snapped open. He told himself it was just the wind whistling through the cracks in his cabin walls. He pulled his thin blanket tighter and tried to ignore it. But the voice came again, closer this time, just outside his window. "Talipo, give me back my Talipo." His dogs, who had been sleeping by the hearth, were now on their feet, the fur on their backs standing straight up. They let out low, menacing growls, their eyes fixed on the door. The hermit's heart began to pound in his chest. Fear, cold and sharp, pricked at his skin. He grabbed his rifle, his hands trembling. The scratching started again, this time louder, more frantic. It sounded like long claws scraping down the wooden door. The voice was right outside now, a chilling whisper that seemed to seep through the walls. "You know I want my Talipo." Suddenly there was a crash. The door burst open, and a towering, dark figure filled the doorway. In the faint light of the dying fire, the hermit could see it was the same creature, but now it stood on two legs, its body twisted and much, much larger than before. Its red eyes burned with a terrifying rage. The dogs lunged, barking and snarling, but the creature swatted them away as if they were flies. One by one, their barks turned to yelps, and then silence. The hermit was frozen in terror. The creature took a step into the cabin, its long claws tearing up the floorboards. It loomed over his bed, its shadow swallowing him whole. The last thing the hermit heard was that awful, hungry whisper right in his ear. "You got it, and I'm gonna get it." The next morning, a group of hunters, passing by, noticed the cabin door was torn from its hinges. They called out, but there was no answer. Inside, the place was destroyed. Furniture was smashed to splinters. The doorframe was covered in deep, savage claw marks, and the earthen floor where the hermit's bed had been was dug up as if something had been frantically searching. The man was gone. All they found was his rifle lying in a corner, and a single, long, black, furry tail. They say the creature got its tail back that night, and something more besides. And to this day, locals will tell you that if you're out in those woods on a quiet, moonless night when the wind is just right, you can still hear it. A soft, hungry voice endlessly searching, calling out from the trees. "Talipo, Talipo." They say you should never, ever answer, because that's how it knows where to find you. So, what do you think? Is the Talipo just a scary story to tell around the campfire? Or is there something truly ancient and hungry lurking in the deep, dark woods? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. 4 creatures: the Wampus Cat, the Raven Mocker, the Moon-Eyed People, and the Talipo. 4 warnings from the old hills that never forget. These stories are not just for scaring children, they are lessons old as the mountains themselves. They remind us to respect what walks beside us unseen, to keep our lights burning, and never to turn your back on the dark. Because out here in the hollers, the dark is not empty, it is crowded. That is all for tonight, friends. Thank you for watching Legends from the Holler. If these stories gave you chills, click the like button so I know you made it through the night in one piece. Share it with someone who thinks they are brave enough to walk through the woods after dark. Until next time, keep your porch light on, your doors locked, and your faith in the old ways strong. And remember, if the woods ever whisper your name, do not whisper back.